Yeah, this is really a cool one. This is in Michael Lawrence's book.
Okay.
And it was, first of all, the stamp, the franking is
I wrote about that cover last year.
That's the Java cover.
I wrote about that. That town doesn't exist anymore.
No, it doesn't. It was.
I wrote about it.
It was destroyed in a typhoon.
No.
Krakatoa, that's right.
This is mine.
Okay. At this point in the program, before the Board of Governors retires upstairs with some business, I'd like to ask Steve Rod to step to the podium and just give us an explanation of this marvelous program he's designed for this evening.
Thank you, Ed. I just wanted to take 2 minutes because when the board leaves, the rest of us who are not on the board get to talk about them while they're upstairs. And we'll have a good time doing that. I wanted to thank everybody who exhibited this evening. I've gotten some wonderful comments from a number of you about the diversity of this. Someone said to me earlier that the most amazing thing about this particular exhibit is they see their friends and colleagues and associates exhibiting things they never knew they collected, that they don't associate them with. And I think that, plus the notion of the diversity, and the most exciting thing are the several of you in the room who have never put something up in a frame until tonight. We'll talk more about that in the board's absence. And finally, someone sitting close to me, a good friend of mine who I will not mention his name, said to me, "Why are there so many blank pages?" And I pointed out to him frames 11 and 12. If you look in your blue program, you'll notice that the exhibitors in frames 11 or 12 are "maybe next year you'll be here." And that's what I said to this person. He's not exhibiting, and that's the reason there's a hole, because if he had exhibited, there'd be one less hole. So we'll talk more after the board leaves, but I wanted to be sure to point out frames 11 and 12 because those exhibitors need your attention. Thanks so much.
Okay, the board will now retire upstairs and we'll be back hopefully in not too many minutes.
Not against you. Come on, top of the league. I do. You should. Yeah. So I'm in there. We advertise this on the web and at meetings. Okay, great. Thank you, Steve. That's terrific. Okay, so I'd like to begin by asking for volunteers to raise their hand if indeed you're put stuff up in these frames for the very first time, that this is the first time you're exhibiting. Anybody who did that? I'd like for further volunteers, among those who have just raised their hands, George, Jack, or anybody else, to tell us how you feel about coming into the room and seeing your stuff for the very first time in the Collectors Club frames. George, would you be comfortable in responding to that?
Sure.
Stand up.
My name is George Schlesinger. I've been a member of the Collectors Club for 10 years. So one of my purposes in exhibiting was to let people know I am a collector. I just don't come here to drink the wine and the. So there's proof there. All the items there, the 2 sheets of stamps from the People's Republic of China, the patriotic covers from the Spanish-American War, a couple of missing in action covers from World War II and deceased covers from World War II. Zeppelin covers and a patriotic cover of General Douglas MacArthur and some Douglas MacArthur Cinderellas, and also a strip of post office official seals. All those items were purchased at flea markets here in New York City.
So my question is, now that you've done this, are you going to continue to find ways to exhibit, or this was a one-time effort?
I'm going to continue to find ways to exhibit.
Well, that's great. Welcome to doing this. That's great. Jack, would you feel comfortable in answering how you feel about exhibiting for the first time?
Oh, sure.
Jack is over there in frame 6.
For a number of years, I've taken an interest in the history of the Allied occupation of Germany from 1945 to 49. And I realized that I could tell the story of the rebuilding of the country through the postal history. And I started to collect items that would highlight the milestones of that period. The deeper I got into it, the more I realized how complex and rich that period is. And I'm very happy to show some of the material that I've collected and the milestones that they represent. But I could not tell the story in 7 pages. I sent Steve an email and asked if I could have more pages. He said no. So I'm hoping to have the opportunity to tell a larger story with more pages someday.
Right. So am I to intuit then that you're going to continue exhibiting more and more after this first effort?
If I'm invited, yes.
Well, great. Okay. But you don't have to be invited. You can also apply to different local shows and regional shows and national shows as you grow, because you have some beautiful stuff there. Jack, thank you very, very much. So the question becomes, thank you. Nick Lombardi gave his membership report, and I listened to it very carefully. And in the report he said, let him know if there are other ways that we can connect to members. And so we have a few minutes only because the board will be back soon, but my question is, the One Frame annual exhibit collects to members, and this connects to members. The One Frame November show is a way to connect to members, and this opportunity at the annual meeting is a way to connect to members. Does anyone have a comment on the comparison of the One Frame annual November meeting and this idea of putting up 20 or 30 exhibits from members at this meeting? Is there anything that we could get back to Nick to say, we have an idea on how we could better connect to Collectors Club members? Here, how about a suggestion? Bob?
Well, there's several subgroups within the Collectors Club. There's a British Empire Study Group, and I think a Vatican Group, and maybe other groups. And we never really hear from them as a greater club. So it might be nice to have an evening or program like this, maybe, that where each of the subgroups take a couple of frames.
That's a great idea. That's a wonderful idea. The whole idea is that they meet here regularly throughout the year, and yet we, the general membership, never get to learn from them, share their material, or see their material. Martin?
That's been done in the past a number of times, but it's never been done every year like one of the groups or something like
so
that.
we can add it to the list.
Yeah.
Anyone else?
I would make another comment.
Sure.
About the British group that everybody was talking about. The thing about the British group, I think, that makes them so inclusive of people is that they have small groups that meet around the country. It's a small country. You can get there by train or by car reasonably easy. And these groups, if you read the British philanthropist,
London
philanthropist, you'll see that there are 4 or 5 meetings a year or a term that meet, and it gives people a chance from all over the country to see what the people in London see more often.
So, the equivalent of that would be the New York Collectors Club meeting in Atlanta, Georgia?
No.
No, what's the equivalent of what you just said?
When I lived in Europe, I would go for the India Study Circle to the Royal for their meetings. So it was sort of like a place for the India Study Circle to be. And we were really treated very, very nicely. After our meeting, during the break, there was a man with a tray with tea and cookies. It was like all very, very nice. And so you look at this institution, and it's a wow.
Okay.
I mean, that's, basically we really felt welcomed as a subgroup.
Richard?
Yeah, along the lines of Bob was talking. First of all, they do have regional meetings.
At the Royal?
They have, in various parts of Great Britain, they have meetings at very
But do those meetings exist as a separate sub-organization, or are they just meeting in those venues?
They're meetings of the Royal in...
So, then I am correct, the equivalent of that would be a meeting of the Collectors Club in Atlanta, Georgia.
Yeah,
Yes,
but the New York people
They'll have a lot
wouldn't
of
go
local
there.
members in each
Okay,
of these places.
okay. Richard, is that what you were going to say?
Well, that's one of the things I was going to say. Now, the other thing is that sometimes when you're in London, you go to the Royal to meet your Philadelphia friends. Somehow the Collectors Club doesn't have that. You come here, where are you going to sit and talk with somebody? You go in the library, but there's no...
There's no talking allowed in the library.
There's no really, if you think of a club,
Yeah.
Okay.
there's nothing of that.
I think that's what the reports meant when getting ready for World Stamp Show New York 2016. They want to make it more club lounge friendly. I think that's what some of the money has been dedicated for. I think Eddie?
Yeah, the gentleman just touched on what I was going to say. I've been a member of the Royal for, I don't know, 15 years or so. And I was an organizer for one of the regional meetings in the UK when I lived there. And the idea is that if you have a lot of members in a particular area, you have a local representative of the club appointed in that area, and he then coordinates the activities. He gets given a membership list of the people who live in his area or in his region. And that does help, because a lot of members feel isolated when they cannot travel to the main meetings, and so they try and take. And what happens then is the president or some of the board members of the club actually make an effort to go to these regional meetings and stimulate more enthusiasm and get more. And the whole idea is for these local or regional members to bring other friends, because they all belong to different philatelic societies around there, is to bring friends along. And I think one of the big things is, it was said earlier on that the Collectors Club is one of the 2 or 3 preeminent societies worldwide, but at the moment the Collectors Club does not feel like that. We need to do a lot more in the building. We need to clean up. The library needs to be continually worked on. And once we're organized and people come in here and say, this place is really, organized, everything is looking clean and neat and tidy, that will help a lot as well.
Okay. I think the board's goal, when I was on the board, I stepped down last year, was to achieve that very specific goal by December 31st, 2015, by the end of this calendar year.
Well, that's good to hear.
So that's all. Actually, it'll be interesting 1 year from tonight, which will be 2 weeks after that deadline, to see what's been achieved. Anybody else want to comment on this, Bob? Captain Bob?
Well, going back to the late 1980s when I was president of the club, I appointed a bench of regional representatives. And as I am now both the U.S. representative for the Royal and also a member of council of the Royal, I know how much they are doing to get the same thing Eddie was talking about. And there's open game on the opportunity to go to any major show in the U.S. and have the Royal have a special meeting there. This was something that I promoted for having done in the United States and possibly overseas, by our regional representatives.
Did they get to do that successfully?
They-
Some or none or some, all?
Most of the individuals who were appointed seemed to take the honor of being appointed, and that was about where it ended.
Okay.
So it has to be followed up very strongly.
So as a past president, you're suggesting very strongly the idea that if we appoint regional area chair people, they could begin to build these coalitions that we've talked about and groups. Thank you, Bob. Yes, sir.
Just looking around at the variety.
Can I ask you this?
Henry Nass. Just looking around at the variety of what's here, I think this room could become a destination in and of itself for field trips of elementary school students, followed by milk and cookies over in our other room. I mean, you could have first day covers, kids who know nothing about stamps at all, and likely will never go into a post office because of email, can see both history and certainly current. I mean, there are lots of people who don't know what a plate block is, and not so much focus on rare and unique things, but things that are right in the post office.
So Henry, what you're suggesting, it's a fascinating idea. I never thought of it, and my mind is already rushing with it, is that this place is empty mostly during the week.
Yeah.
And that if we could find the right amount of volunteer labor to put together 20 or 30 permanent half-page exhibits, first day covers, plate blocks, United States stamps, stamps of different countries, that we could begin to work with the Board of Education, or maybe even the high schools, never mind the elementary schools, to get kids to come by. Ken, I bet you have an idea on this.
Thank you for hearing me, even though I'm not a member. I really like Henry's idea.
But you're going to probably be a member soon, right?
And I hope so, yeah,
Good,
yeah.
okay.
Okay. And what I like about it is I grew up not far from here, I guess maybe a mile or two walk on East 7th Street, and I collected stamps. And I used to sit there and trade my stamps with Willie and Darryl in my building over on East 7th Street. And we never had anything like that. That was kind of the heyday. We had Minkus and other Macy's used to sell stamps and everything. But I think his idea is great, and also just having stamps that kids like. Let me tell you guys, you're going to laugh at me, but the last stamps I bought, and I think you guys should all go out and buy them, the Batman stamps at the U.S. Post Office. I love that stuff. Anyway, that's my contribution to Henry's stuff.
Postmaster Donahoe appreciates your advertisement for the Batman stamps, which are quite great. They're really great stamps.
And I'd just like to add one thing. One thing every child that comes here could do, and I'm still looking more at younger, but who knows, is send an envelope to himself at home with 5 or 6 stamps that are older than his parents and worth only face value.
Great, using all postage. Stephen?
Yeah, I think picking up on that idea, you can't have the kids come in here and just look at old paper. If you had them come in here with computer screens and have them design a stamp and have the stuff around them, I think you'd have something they would do. You design a stamp, print it, and then mail it to yourself.
Well, I want to just point out that our sister club, the National Postal Museum at the Smithsonian National Postal Museum has all that on their website, both their general website and their Arago website. So it's a program that's available that we heartily endorse as an affiliate of the museum.
So one could sit down on one's computer and do that?
Yes. Actually, you could do one more thing at the Postal Museum's website. You know, I'm very ambivalent about this, but at the Postal Museum's website, you could take any stamp off of their website and put it into your album. They have a virtual stamp collection that you could take stamps from in your virtual stamp album. And we could probably discuss for the next 3 hours, are these virtual stamp albums a great thing or a terrible thing? Because one of the things that we are trying to do with World Stamp Show New York 2016, in which we hope we get tens of thousands, it's our goal to get tens of thousands of people to come by, is to show that stamp collecting is a hands-on hobby. And so we have 90 post offices coming from all over the world in a special section of the Javits Center called Walk Around the World. And we're going to help people understand that they can, for coming to the Javits Center, walk to 90 different countries, in the space of 2 or 3 hours. Further on down, we have a beginner's area where we're going to have literally millions of stamps to give to people and have them help them take themselves. And that's what I think stamp collecting is about, is walking around the world and having access to stamps, walking through a beginner's area, walking through the bourse area, touching stamps, covers, souvenir sheets, or whatever. And yet, what Steve is mentioning is very important. We are living in an internet society and a web society. And the National Postal Museum has done an unbelievable job. If you are not familiar with their website, I urge you to go to it. It's totally interactive in terms of building a collection. Case?
You know, I did something the other day that
Stand up, please, sir.
That was stimulated by an article from Wade Sadi when he was president. I had my 8-year-old grandsons write a letter. They were with us for the summer. I had them write a letter to their mother and went through the whole process of putting it in an envelope, going to the post office, having put a stamp on it, and they were totally flabbergasted.
Yes.
And it struck me,
Absolutely.
it struck me that I assumed something that they had no idea of. So the postmaster was actually very nice. He made them come behind the counter and he actually had them stamp the stamps on the envelope, and they couldn't wait for those things to arrive at home. And it struck me that I was assuming things that people would know something like as simple as mailing a letter. Even with my grandchildren, 8-year-olds, I just assumed that everybody would know that. They had no idea, and they had such a great time that now they're collecting cars on stamps.
That's great.
You know, and I was just totally blown away by the fact that they didn't know about it. But who would have thought it? I should have thought it earlier.
I want to thank you so much. My budget's kind of tight these days. You've saved me 1 whole hour with my therapist this week because my grandchildren don't collect stamps either. And that's our problem. You know, many of our very own beloved children and grandchildren have wandered away based on the culture and the schooling and the education that they're getting, which is different from the culture and the schooling and education that you and I got. Bob again?
Yeah.
And who's that?
I have my grandson is overseas when his mother is on sabbatical from Ohio State University. And so we send mail over to them regularly. Well, he's in school in France and he's not a collector. But what I've done is I've taken the opportunity to put on the inverted Jenny stamps, the $2 stamps and such, and told him that this makes great bargaining power for him to get together with his French classmates. And all of a sudden he's taking off and he has found that this is really a major thing that boosts his position in the stamp world over there, such as it happens to be among the youngsters. So it might take hold, who knows? At least it's a try.
Thank you for sharing that. Bob?
In this juniors meetings in the club, is it possible to call one of us each time, volunteering, bring your collection and explain to the kids what it's all about? Each one is different thing.
Wait, I'm not understanding. How do you want to do that? When do you want to do that?
But if you can ask somebody, okay, we want one volunteer for Saturday, such and such day.
When the kids clubs meet on Saturday.
You bring your collection and explain to the kids what's it all about, why did you collect it this way.
That's a great idea. Thank you. Anybody else? Yeah, Steve again?
I'm sorry, I thought of something else. It's Bob's fault. About a year and a half ago, we had the Samoan ambassador here give a talk, to a handful of stalwarts. But I thought maybe if we had an ambassador come in and give a presentation to kids, it could be the Fiji ambassador or it could be some other country, and the kids could just be here seeing the Fiji ambassador, and then we could have stuff on the walls that are Fijian stamps related to that exhibit, which they could look at, not look at, and the talk could be not about stamps, but about the country, and stuff on the wall relates to, that it's another way of trying to use the building, with the UN's right nearby, use the building and talk to some schools. I'm sure the schools might be interested in doing that with their students. I don't know how you organize it all.
Final comment from Ed.
I think that we should write, when we write to people, we should put our own stamps on it, and you could put 10 stamps on an envelope. Diane, over here, I'm an accountant, she asked me for a booklet I wrote, and I put stamps on it, and I put 2 half-cent Ben Franklin stamps. It was a Ben Franklin booklet, and she called me up, and we found out that we both collect stamps, and now she's a member. So I think you're kindling an interest for kids. I sent something to a friend yesterday, I sent him a book, and I put about, it took me 5 minutes to pack the book, and 20 minutes to pick out the stamps of what I want. But if we do this, it kindles an interest, and you never know where it works. We're concerned about the Collectors Club, but I think we're really more concerned about getting young people interested, or anybody. So buy these old stamps, you can buy them for 80% of face. You gotta do a lot of licking, pain in the neck, but I think it's fun.
Thank you, Ed. Thank you all. Okay, one more, last comment.
Every time you see a youngster, you want them interested in stamps, you've got to go to the trouble, show them how to soak them, dry them, how to hinge them, tell them to get a blank book. That's the way to start them off. Don't show them difficult stamps to get, don't show them your collection, just show them, tell them to save the mail that comes in the house. And show them how to soak them or hinge them.
Great.
I've done that.
Okay, we gotta move on, okay?
The same subject. I went to the nearest school from my house, I'm Klein School in Gutenberg. 7th and 8th graders, I collected a lot of them. I showed them what the stamps look like, what it's all about. The school bought 12 starter kits, albums, tweezers and all. And I gave them something like 2,000 stamps. I said, next time you come here next month, if you have 500 stamps, I will give you 500.
Okay, thanks. We got to move on. Thank you so much. I've made a note of all these comments. I wanted to make a suggestion. The board should be down in less than 5 minutes. There are some fabulous exhibits here. We moved the chairs to the center of the room. You might have noticed, to make the aisles wider so that lots of people could be in the aisles. I would point out that the winner of the President's Award exhibit is just absolutely fabulous in terms of his descriptions on his title page about the different interests that he has in terms of the graphic design of stamps. And for those of you who didn't know, this over there in frame 4 is Irene Bromberg's exhibit, the executive secretary of the club. So you may want to take that in. So we've got less than 5 minutes. They should be down. I urge you to take a look at some of these exhibits that you haven't seen. And I want to again thank the exhibitors particularly. And don't forget that maybe next year you'll be here. Thank you so much. He's the one that got the presidency. Right. Even though he's a Portland.